If anyone has been living magic for a good few years, I bet there have been times when you have suffered from doubt. I'm in one of those phases at present. I'm 70 years old, I'm feeling my age, I have arthritis in my fingers, I had a fall and now have to walk with a crutch. A lot of my friends are dying. It's quite depressing, and I must admit that if, just at present, if Richard Dawkins took me down an alleyway in the dark and held a gun to my head and said, "Tell me, do you really believe in all this magic nonsense?" I would have to say, with difficulty. And if he then went on to say, "Oh, you old fraud, what are you doing, making these videos about magic and selling books on and everything if you find it so hard to believe in it?" And I'd have to say, well, I also would find it very hard now to bench press 250 pounds. It doesn't mean I should go around telling people they shouldn't be doing it. Now that's actually not a bad analogy, because the point is that belief requires a certain effort in magic. Because, as I explained in an earlier video, belief is a gift you have to give, rather than the thing you believe in having to prove itself to you. Gave the example, do you believe in fairies? And the religious people would say no because they're not in the scriptures, and the scientific people would say no because they've never seen evidence that they exist. And I draw a comparison of that with do you believe in equal rights for women? Because actually the evidence that women really do have equal rights is as scant as the evidence that fairies exist, I think. But most people would say they do believe in equal rights for women, because what they're really saying is they are giving a gift of belief to it, a sort of commitment to it. And that's more like the belief that you give in magic and art. When you go to a Shakespeare play, you're not offended by the fact that the person on the stage claiming to be the Prince of Denmark is actually just an actor and the whole thing's a fraud. No, you give a gift of belief in it and you get a good experience. And similarly, when you use a tarot pack or something like that, it's the gift of belief you give to it that repays you with a good result. And so there's a certain amount of effort involved in magic. It's not just the make it happen that the fantasists will try to convince you. An illustration of this is to compare religion and science cultures with magic and art. And it's the difference between hunter-gatherers and agriculturists. You see, people often say that religion is a search for meaning, and it is in quite a sense. You go out looking for meaning and finding it either in the world or in a higher world. And when you move to scientific culture, that quest goes on, except you're actually trying to pin down meaning as fact. It's a bit like sort of catching butterflies and then pinning them all to a board, into a neat series of facts, things like that. It's a hunting and gathering process which does have the result of leaving the world with apparently less and less meaning in it. And when that happens, that is one reason why people move to a magical culture. Now, some people think that the search for magic is another quest for meaning, but it isn't really, because what you do in magic is you plant meaning. The New Ager who takes a piece of rock crystal and purifies it and does rituals with it and makes it into a power object. They have made it become meaningful, just as the group of people who find a place on a ley, and they say it's on a ley line, and they sit and meditate and chant and everything, and it becomes a meaningful sacred place, and so on. It's that's much more the process in magic. And I explained in, I think it was the Magic and Kitsch video, that art inherits this sense of meaning from magic, but is a bit embarrassed by it. You see, in art, it's true also, you can read meanings into a piece of work of art, and artists may have put some of that in, but there's a feeling that if it's done too deliberately, it's kitsch. It's not good taste. There should be more inspiration than deliberate putting in little bits of symbolism in order to make people think or feel in a certain way. So my art is embarrassed by meaning at a certain level that inherits from magic. What instead is important? Well, I described in the Magic and Art video how what begins as a very sort of personal, almost magical act by the artist tends to become recognized by society, and that's really when people say this is art. And that process can go on and on up until a larger and larger group recognize it, and it becomes an icon, of the tribe or the age or whatever. And then, in a funny sort of way, it ceases to belong to the artist anymore. Now, what is it that the artist holds on to then to replace that? And the answer, I think, is style. The one thing that's left when your works of art are, public property, they're no longer yours, is you've got a recognizable style, and that's the important thing in art. Now, the interesting thing is when you move into the religious culture, what does religion inherit from art? And it is a sense of style. Now, again, this is an embarrassment in religion. Style? No, style is a worldly trapping. It's an outward appearance. No, we're not interested in style. But what is any religious war except a style war? Catholics versus Protestants in Northern Ireland, same content, same Bible, same God. It's style which is different. To take a political example, the strength of the following for Hitler's Nazi movement was surely in the stylishness of it. Those wonderful uniforms and everything like that, I think blew people over. And my own religious establishment where I was trained, Cambridge University, a long-founded religious establishment, I wrote a dissertation on initiation and education, and when it came to it being judged, the person said, well, actually this is the most interesting one I've had this year, but I can't accept it because it's not been written in academic style. Bugger the content, it's the style that mattered. Style is absolutely important in religion, and the more religion tries to deny it, the more it ends up as sheer style. I mean, the Puritan religions that try to reject these trappings, I think the most Puritan religion I can think of is the Shakers. Now, all that I know that's left of the Shakers is a shop in Marylebone High Street selling Shaker furniture. That's all that's left. And in South Africa, the word Zen means a style of bathroom fittings. So style is an essential, but it's a real embarrassment in religion. So what do they aspire to instead? Well, it's faith. You'll hear someone saying, when my young daughter caught cancer, I nearly lost my faith. And other people say, you must hold on to the faith, try harder. It's not something that comes naturally to a religious person. It's a thing they really work for. They value it. And so, what does science inherit from the religious culture? It is faith. Again, embarrassment. No, don't have faith in science. But who has more faith than someone in the scientific culture? This year CERN at last found really solid evidence for the existence of the Higgs boson. So, yippee, the Higgs boson has been proven to exist. Oh no. As scientists, we are open-minded, and we realise that although this is very good evidence for the existence of the Higgs boson, in fact, we must wait and have it verified and make sure further people also get the same result, and so on and so forth, because we're open-minded. Okay, if you're open-minded, of course you also have to allow for the possibility that alien intelligences might have got into the minds of people at CERN and deliberately produced a false result in order to weaken human understanding of reality prior to an invasion. Oh, come on, don't be ridiculous. That's absolutely absurd. That's unthinkable. It's not that unthinkable. I mean, artistic community could make a nice movie about that. Religious people could found a religion on it, and magicians could do whatever they like with that idea. It's not that unthinkable, but it is absolutely outrageous to a scientific culture. And another example, more down to earth, is that I remember, it must be about 20 years ago, a group of people in a pub who looked very diverse people, and they're having interesting conversation, and I asked them, and they said, "Oh, we're skeptics." And so I asked them about their skepticism, a whole series of questions, anyone here think that there might be something in Reiki? Homeopathy? I think perhaps one doubtful finger. I went through a whole list of sort of New Age things, and basically they all agreed there was absolutely nothing in those things. And that was really ironical to me, because the word skeptic comes from the Greek meaning doubt, and yet there wasn't any doubt there. They struck me as being a group of very diverse people, all united by a set of strongly held common beliefs, and that to me is a cult. You see, they were aspiring to doubt. They took the name doubt, and yet there was one thing they didn't have. Now it's my turn to annoy the magical fraternity, because what is it that magic inherits from the science community? It is doubt. You see, I think a lot of what goes on in the magical culture is people being constantly amazed to find that magic actually works. Yesterday I was at an astrological conference just over the hill at near Scarborough, and wonderful occasion, a beautiful place. And the sort of conversations you hear in a gathering like that, things like this. Guess what happened to me the other day? I was going to go to work, and I turned the ignition key and flat battery. So, I took out my cell phone to phone the AA. Network was down. I went round the corner to the payphone, and it was jammed, it had been vandalised. Guess what? I looked at my chart, and that day Mercury had gone retrograde right on my ascendant. And everyone says, "Wow, that's incredible." Now, the word incredible means unbelievable. But that's just the sort of thing that should happen when Mercury goes retrograde on the key point of your chart. You don't get scientists saying, "Guess what happened? I went to the laboratory the other day and I mixed oxygen and hydrogen and I put a spark through it and bang, it all turned to water." And everyone goes, "Wow, that's incredible." Because they really believe it. They know that's going to happen. See, magic, people are constantly surprising themselves. Deep down, they don't really believe anything. Now, I'm sure that people will be offended when I say that, but actually, you see, that's a very important part of magic. That's the strength of it. Because if, in that absolute sense, you believed something in magic was true, you couldn't actually use any other techniques. If you thought the I Ching is the absolute truth, that's based on a binary version of reality, then you couldn't use astrology because that's based on a duodecimal system. It is that freedom to pick any set of symbols or any mythology, give it the gift of belief and work with it. It is that lack of the absolute belief that means you are free to give these gifts of belief. And that is a key thing in the magical tradition. But then every now and again, that sort of underlying disbelief wells up and you are immersed in it. And you can feel quite despairing of the whole business. Oh God, am I an absolute idiot? Is society right? Is this a load of rubbish? And I think that's equivalent to the religious person's dark night of the soul. I think it's what the alchemists would call the negrido, the blackening. And it's like a black despair, and yet the alchemists say that is initial substance, the prime matter that you are going to perfect, and out of it will come the elixir. And there's something in that. You see, if I think of my own dark, despairing periods like this, they last for a few years. And in my case, they tend to take a pattern rather like my cyclic pattern of the 4 cultures. So for me, it's about a sort of 18-year cycle. I can find the times when for a year or two, things are really difficult and hard and life seems dry and dead and brittle. And yet it tends to be followed by a revival of magic, and that spark comes back. And is there anything one can do for that to help? Well, I think knowing that it's likely to happen is not a bad thing. But it's interesting that the last time this happened, and that was quite a few years ago, it was about nearly 20 years ago, I was such a low point that I was still doing meditation and it was like drudgery. But I used the mantra, there is no magic, there are no gods. And I just kept repeating that. And the strange thing was, it was as though I actually felt empowered by that. It was as though all that belief I'd pushed out to all these different systems and, the deities and demons and things like that, it was as though it was all flowing back into me. There is nothing except me in this physical world. There is no magic, there are no gods. And it was like it all came back inside me. And in Austin Spare's terms, you could say that free energy of belief had returned into me. And it wasn't a quick process, but as I say, within a year, my life, the colour came back to my life, it all returned. And I think it's a valuable thing. I think in alchemical terms, this seems to be a necessary part of the magical life. And there's a sense in which it's at those times when magic isn't there that you can see it most clearly and understand it most clearly. I'd be interested to know if other people have shared my experience.